From the outside, Becca Bloom's rise looked almost accidental, like a sudden burst of light in a world already overflowing with influencers and curated perfection. But if you look closer, past the filters, the magazine covers, and the endless stream of glamorous destinations, what you find is a girl who refused to accept a life defined by limits. Long before social media crowned her one of the most influential lifestyle personalities of her generation, before the brand deals and luxury homes and seven-figure income streams, there was simply Becca, accurate, observant, and determined to create something bigger than the world she was handed. And that's where her story begins, not with virality, but with an unwavering belief that her life was meant to be something extraordinary. She grew up in an environment that never promised her fame or fortune. There was no Hollywood-style prophecy, no golden ladder waiting. But what Becca always had was vision. She could see beauty in places other people ignored. She noticed stories in the smallest details. And in a digital age where storytelling became currency, Becca's ability to turn ordinary moments into cinematic experiences became her superpower. Her very first videos weren't glamorous, simple lifestyle clips filmed on borrowed equipment, late at night, under soft apartment lighting, but they carried a spark. She spoke with a warmth and openness that made strangers feel like lifelong friends. People didn't just watch her, they connected with her. By the time her online presence began to take shape, it wasn't because she followed trends. It was because she created her own atmosphere, equal parts dreamy, grounded, aesthetic, and real. And when viral momentum finally hit, it wasn't random. It was the moment preparation met opportunity. Her following exploded. The engagement numbers doubled, then tripled, then surged into the millions. Suddenly, her name wasn't just floating through social platforms, it was being spoken in boardrooms, whispered across marketing teams, printed on the agendas of luxury brands desperate to collaborate with her. What people rarely see is how deeply strategic Becca is behind the scenes. Every project that looks effortless is actually the result of meticulous planning. Every photo shoot, every vlog, every partnership is part of a larger architecture she's been building silently for years. And when the money started flowing in bigger than anything she had imagined, she didn't collapse under its weight. She expanded, she reinvested. She built a brand instead of merely becoming one. Her first major pivot into luxury lifestyle content was a turning point. She showcased travel not as escapism but as artistry, frame by frame, each moment treated like a scene in a movie. And audiences loved it. The sunsets over Mykonos, the slow-motion champagne toasts in Paris, the morning routines in minimalist glass-walled apartments. Suddenly, Becca wasn't just documenting life, she was defining an aesthetic millions tried to imitate. Of course, with the aesthetic came the realities of luxury. Her car collection alone became a talking point online. The matte white Range Rover Sport, her first major purchase, became iconic, featured in countless reels and lifestyle transitions. Then came the upgrade-out Porsche 911 Carrera GTS. Sleek, black, and polished like obsidian. The kind of car that didn't just turn heads but rewrote them. It wasn't simply about owning expensive things. It was about achieving milestones she once thought were impossible. Behind the camera lens, Becca's home life transformed too. Her first apartment was modest, but once her brand partnerships grew into six-figure contracts, she upgraded into a luxury high-rise that changed her entire lifestyle. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a sparkling skyline. A walk-in closet that looked like a boutique showroom. A kitchen designed for cinematic meal prep scenes. Every detail of her home became part of her storytelling canvas, and her audience felt the glow of upward movement as if it were their own. But among all this glamour, what kept her audience loyal was her honesty, her willingness to show vulnerability even as her lifestyle elevated. She spoke openly about the pressure to perform, the imposter syndrome that never truly leaves, and the nights she cried, wondering if the success would last. And ironically, it was those moments, those imperfect, unfiltered windows into her inner world, that made people trust her even more. What the public sees today is a flourishing lifestyle entrepreneur with a portfolio that would intimidate even seasoned media personalities. But it didn't happen overnight. It came from years of fine-tuning her craft, studying analytics, understanding her audience, and reinventing herself just enough to stay relevant without losing authenticity. Her social media platforms became mini empires, each post, each collaboration, each project contributing to a larger tapestry of influence and financial stability. And then came the business ventures, quiet at first, but powerful, a beauty line built around natural radiance, a lifestyle journal series that sold out in hours, long-term partnerships with luxury fashion houses that solidified her place on the global influencer map. Every venture reflected her essence, soft, cinematic, aspirational, yet undeniably ambitious. By 2025, Becca Bloom wasn't just trending. She was the blueprint for the new era of digital luxury storytelling. She had the fame, the lifestyle, the financial security, but beneath all of it was a core truth her closest friends always knew. Becca's real success wasn't in the things she bought. It was in the life she built for herself, a life she once only saw in daydreams. And now, standing at the height of her influence, she wasn't slowing down. She was expanding into television, high-end collaborations, and even investments that hinted at a future far bigger than content creation. Yet even with everything she had achieved, Becca knew there was more to uncover, more to create, more to chase. Because for her, success wasn't a destination, it was momentum. And little did she know, her next chapter was about to test her in ways she never expected. The turning point in Becca Bloom's life didn't arrive wrapped in celebration or spotlight. It came quietly, at a moment when her career seemed unstoppable, when the numbers were perfect, when the world was calling her name with almost unreasonable enthusiasm. She had just returned from a whirlwind work trip in Milan, designer fittings, brand dinners, late-night shoots along cobblestone streets, and she was exhausted in a way she couldn't quite explain. Not physically, not creatively, something deeper. A fatigue from constantly being on, constantly being perfect, constantly being the version of herself the world adored. For the first time, Becca wondered whether she was building her empire, or slowly being consumed by it. She hid it well. To the outside world, she was in one of the best seasons of her life. The cars, the luxury apartments, the international bookings, the glow that followed her like a soft camera filter. Her net worth had crossed the seven-figure mark for the first time. She had become a recognizable face in airports, restaurants, hotel lobbies. Strangers approached her with the kind of reverence usually reserved for TV stars. And yet, inside, something felt misaligned. It wasn't sadness, it was something quieter, like a whisper that something was missing. And that whisper turned into a voice the night she sat alone on her balcony, overlooking a skyline she had once dreamed of. She realized that while her lifestyle had grown, her world had become smaller. She was surrounded by millions of followers, but fewer real moments. It wasn't burnout. It was something more human, the desire to reclaim her life, not just her content. That moment changed everything. Becca began restructuring her entire approach to success. She didn't announce it. She didn't make it dramatic, "I'm taking a break" post. She simply shifted. She hired new management to protect her boundaries. She declined projects that didn't align with her long-term vision. She stopped chasing virality and began chasing fulfillment. And that decision became the foundation for her next evolution. Becca Bloom, the businesswoman. Her fans didn't see the late-night strategy meetings, the spreadsheets, the brand architecture sessions. They didn't know she was quietly studying everything from digital marketing psychology to real estate investing. They didn't see her research luxury markets, attend networking dinners, or pitch creative campaigns to global brands. By 2025, people assumed Becca's success came from being photogenic and charismatic. But those who worked closely with her knew the truth. She was one of the sharpest young entrepreneurs in the lifestyle industry. Her luxury partnerships expanded, not just in quantity but in depth. She began signing exclusive contracts, multi-year deals that secured a level of financial stability influencers rarely reach. Her travel content evolved into curated, brand-funded experiences. She no longer just visited destinations. She shaped them. Hotels redesigned suites for her shoots. Restaurants created custom dining experiences. High-fashion labels flew her across continents for private campaigns. She was no longer participating in the luxury world, she was influencing it. And then came the home. The jump from her trendy high-rise apartment to her first real luxury property wasn't just an upgrade, it was a statement. Nestled in an upscale neighborhood, the home became her sanctuary. A glass staircase, a private rooftop lounge, an infinity-edge balcony overlooking the city, a minimalistic studio with natural light streaming through wide windows. It was the place where she reinvented everything: her content, her business, her identity. Fans obsessed over the glimpses she shared: the marble countertop, morning coffee shots, the sunset reflections painting her living room gold, the slow-motion shots of her walking through hallways that looked like art galleries. This home became part of her aesthetic universe. And to her audience, it felt like watching a character grow inside a cinematic storyline. Each room, a new chapter, each detail, a new layer. But the lifestyle that emerged from this era wasn't just about consumption. Becca became philanthropic in ways she didn't publicize. Quiet donations to women's education programs, anonymous contributions to mental health initiatives, monthly support to small creators whose potential she recognized. That was the real Becca, generous, thoughtful, often misunderstood as simply lucky or famous, when in truth, she was intentional, strategic, and deeply empathetic. As her influence grew, her business ventures expanded. Her beauty line flourished. Her lifestyle products sold out in minutes. And her collaborations with luxury designers led to capsule collections that felt personal rather than commercial. She wasn't selling products, she was selling an atmosphere, a feeling, a lifestyle people aspired to. But with fame came scrutiny. Suddenly, every move she made became public commentary. People speculated about her love life, her friendships, her finances. Rumors swirled whenever she appeared in a new city or was seen with someone new. The pressure to remain flawless grew heavier. There were days the online noise became suffocating, but Becca learned to quiet it by grounding herself in the one truth she had discovered on that lonely balcony night. She didn't need to be perfect, she just needed to be real. Nothing tested this new mindset more than the unexpected relationship that entered her life. It wasn't planned. It wasn't part of any aesthetic strategy. It happened organically. Someone she met in an environment far removed from the influencer world. Someone who didn't care about numbers or cameras or online narratives. Someone who saw Becca as Becca, not the brand. For the first time in years, she experienced something pure, connection without performance. It changed how she carried herself. It softened her edges. It made her more confident in her boundaries. And while she kept his identity private, those closest to her noticed a shift. She smiled differently. She moved differently. Her content had a glow that couldn't be faked. Her fans sensed it too, even without confirmation. They could feel the stability, the balance, the peace. Professionally, her net worth continued rising. The diversified income streams, brand deals, product lines, content revenue, real estate investments gave her a financial base that few creators her age achieved. Analysts estimated her earnings in the mid-seven figures, and projections suggested she was heading toward 8. Luxury brands considered her part of a new wave of creators who understood both aesthetic influence and commercial strategy. But amidst all this, Becca never forgot the girl she used to be, the one filming late at night with borrowed equipment, hoping someone out there would resonate with her voice. She thought about that version of herself often. It kept her grounded, grateful, and hungry for more, not for the sake of wealth or fame, but for the sake of purpose. As 2025 unfolded, Becca found herself on the cusp of something larger than anything she had built so far. Her team began whispering about television opportunities. Production houses reached out about docu-style lifestyle shows. Streaming platforms floated the idea of following her behind the scenes. The global fashion world invited her deeper into its inner circle, and digital platforms considered her a case study in sustainable influence. But with rising opportunities came rising risks. More visibility meant more criticism. More success meant more pressure. And deep inside, Becca knew she was standing at the edge of a new chapter, one that would test her emotionally, mentally, and professionally. Because the world loved the polished version of her. But the next chapter would require showing them everything she had kept hidden. Everything fragile, everything human, everything real. And that revelation, raw and unfiltered, would define her legacy more than any luxury home, brand deal, or viral moment ever could. The moment that would redefine Becca Bloom's future didn't happen in front of a camera or under bright studio lights. It happened in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, in the quiet space between meetings, content drafts, and travel plans. She received a message, simple, direct, unexpected, that forced her to stop, breathe, and question everything she had built. It wasn't a scandal, nor was it a setback. It was an opportunity from a major production studio offering her something she had never considered before, her own show. Not a reality show, not a scripted influencer series, but a documentary-style exploration of modern luxury living through her eyes, her story, and her truth. A chance to step into mainstream entertainment, to shape culture far beyond social media, to take her influence from the digital world into something tangible, lasting, permanent. It was the kind of offer that could elevate her status to a new tier 1, usually reserved for elite entrepreneurs and iconic personalities. But it also meant exposure. Real exposure, the kind she couldn't control. And for someone who had built an empire on carefully curated authenticity, the idea of handing over parts of her life to a team of producers felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She spent days thinking about it. She went on long walks without filming anything. She journaled late at night under dim light, pages filled with questions about identity, boundaries, and fear. Who was she without the perfectly edited narrative? Would people still admire her? Would they accept the less polished parts? Would they finally see the woman behind the aesthetic core? Would they pick her apart? As she questioned herself, her team strategized. They saw the opportunity, the reach, the revenue potential. Networks wanted her. Streaming executives wanted her. Brands were ready to increase their investment. Her agent knew this could unlock an entirely new financial dimension, opening contract negotiations and equity deals that could multiply her net worth. But ultimately, the decision rested on one person, Becca. And when she finally said yes, she didn't do it for fame. She did it because she realized something profound: her story mattered. Not because it was glamorous, but because it showed what was possible when someone refused to let their past define their future. Her show announcement was subtle. No dramatic trailers. No countdowns, just a soft reveal, a behind-the-scenes photo of her sitting in a director's chair, her name written across the back, and a caption that simply read, "A new chapter begins." Within minutes, the internet erupted. Her followers flooded her with support. Media outlets picked up the story. Entertainment blogs speculated about themes, storylines, guest appearances. Luxury brands began drafting partnership pitches tied to the show's release. Her name trended across platforms in multiple countries. Overnight, she wasn't just an influencer, she was a rising entertainment figure. But while the world celebrated, she faced one of the most emotionally challenging seasons of her life. Filming forced her to confront the parts of herself she had tucked away. The cameras captured her frustrations, her insecurities, the moments she doubted her abilities. They captured her struggles balancing business and relationships. They documented her exhaustion after back-to-back flights, her anxiety before major shoots, her private victories and breakdowns. And through it all, something unexpected happened. She felt free. For the first time, she didn't have to curate. She didn't have to pretend she wasn't overwhelmed or tired or scared. She could tell the truth, not just the aesthetic version of it, and people connected to her even more deeply. The early cuts of the show left her in tears not because they exposed her flaws, but because they finally showed her humanity. She saw herself clearly, a young woman who built everything from nothing, who worked harder than anyone realized, who stayed humble even when her world turned golden. She saw a strength she didn't know others could see, and that changed her. As the series neared release, her life accelerated again. Invitations to global events doubled. She walked red carpets she once watched from afar. Her collaborations extended into luxury jewelry, fragrance, and high-fashion editorial spreads. She was featured on magazine covers, interviewed by major outlets, invited onto podcasts and panels about entrepreneurship and influence. Doors opened effortlessly not because of luck, but because she had built credibility through authenticity and resilience. Her financial world expanded too. With her new visibility came advanced negotiations, revenue shares instead of flat fees, equity stakes in brands instead of short campaigns, long-term contracts with global companies. Her net worth surged into the multi-seven-figure range, climbing steadily toward 8. She invested in real estate, acquiring a second luxury home in airy modern retreat with ocean views and a quiet property she rarely showed online. Her true sanctuary, her car collection grew as well. She added a Tesla Model X for daily convenience, a Mercedes G-Wagon for city life, and a limited edition Aston Martin for special occasions. Not because she needed them, because each represented a milestone in her journey, a reminder that dreams, when matched with discipline, become destinations. But in the midst of success, Becca guarded her peace fiercely. Her relationship stayed private, protected from the noise. Her close friends formed a small inner circle that kept her grounded. She made time for therapy, journaling, meditation, and silence. She learned to slow down and savor her success instead of racing past it. And then came the premiere night. The lights dimmed, the audience hushed, and Becca Bloom saw her story, her real story, unfold larger than life. She watched her struggles and triumphs projected onto a screen for the world to witness. She saw the girl she once was standing in the shadows of who she had become. She saw the evolution, the heartbreak, the bravery, and for the first time in her entire career, she felt something she had never allowed herself to fully embrace: pride. Not pride in the luxury or the fame, but in the fact that she built every chapter with her own hands, that she didn't skip steps, that she didn't give up during the nights she almost walked away, that the world wasn't seeing a character, they were seeing her. When the episode ended, the standing ovation felt surreal. Not because of the applause, but because she realized she had stepped into the next level of her destiny. She wasn't just influencing, she was inspiring. Her show became an instant success, pulling massive streams and attracting global sponsorships. Critics praised its honesty, its cinematography, its balance of glamour and vulnerability. Fans binge-watched episodes and flooded comment sections with gratitude, sharing how her story changed their perspective on self-worth, ambition, and persistence. And as 2025 progressed, something became clear. Becca Bloom had transcended categories. She wasn't just a creator, an entrepreneur, a luxury lifestyle figure, or a public personality. She had become a symbol, a modern blueprint for the self-made woman who starts with a phone, a dream, and the courage to keep going even when the world doubts her. Her legacy was no longer defined by her aesthetic universe but by her emotional one. She stood at the edge of a global empire she built from scratch, with new opportunities unfolding at her feet. A book deal, a global brand tour, a luxury product line expansion, international speaking engagements, and a future series already in negotiation. But standing in her quiet home after the premiere, looking out at the city lights that once made her feel small, she whispered a truth she finally believed. I made it, but I'm just getting started. And that is the real story of Becca Bloom, a girl who turned her life into art, a woman who turned ambition into legacy, a creator who turned vulnerability into power, and a name the world will remember long after the lights fade.